This is Geek Gab with your host, Narnall and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Saturday, March 4th, 2022. 23. Wow. Man, I got 2 full months into the year before I messed that up.
Yeah, hey, don't don't take this the wrong way, but don't listen to last week's episode.
Oh, did I mess it up too?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's
Yep.
still 2 months into the
2
year.
months into the year. Normally you hit that 2 months hump and oh, have you done your taxes yet? Usually that's when most people get it straight.
Oh, actually, I have done my taxes.
Oh, well. Well, it was the 2022 taxes, so maybe that messed you up.
I think you would be shocked how much money I have to pay the federal government this year.
I would be shocked if you paid them anything.
Um, well, I won't lie. The private island is a great tax write-off, so
Mm.
don't
We should
listen
do
to
an
the show, IRS.
We should do a whole episode on tax shelters
Oh, that
because
sounds exciting. I'm down for that.
we're going to
No,
open up
sorry.
a whole new audience of listeners. People come in, tune in for the geeky, pop culture gaming talk, and then we're going to add a bunch of people who are the type of people who troll YouTube looking for advice on investments and tax breaks and everything.
Yeah, bad tax advice here on Geek Gab.
Here's a first disclaimer,
Yes,
folks. First of all, I am not a lawyer or an investor. Hit the like and subscribe, click the bell, whatever.
or an accountant. We are not accountants. First and biggest bad tax advice we can give you: just don't pay them. Nobody cares. The IRS isn't paying attention. They didn't hire like 78,000 new IRS agents to keep track of small people. They hired them to keep track of the 13 billionaires in the country. They hired 78,000 people to keep track of 13 people. That's the truth. This has been Bad Tax Advice, brought to you by Geek Gab. We return you to your regularly scheduled program. See what I did there? Apparently not. Well, either Dornell has dropped out or he's stunned into silence by the magnitude of my comic genius. Genius is not a word that I use lightly. No, sir. So we had a. Boy, I'm just. Yes, he's disconnected. Okay, we had goals for this show. He had a goal and I had a goal. His goal was to go see Cocaine Bear. My goal was to go see Quantum Mania. And I am willing to tell you that as a good co-host who was fully prepared for this show, that I didn't see a single solitary second of Quantum Mania. I didn't even get to the theaters, and this wasn't quite totally, absolutely my fault. I had genuinely a scintilla of this not being my fault in there somewhere. So we're not going to talk about Quantum Mania today, but we are going to talk about Cocaine Bear. Um, and I also wanted to talk about maybe some role-playing design thing, and it was genuinely on the tip of my brain, only I can't remember the topic right now. I literally have no idea what game design thing I wanted to talk about.
Hey,
I'm, I'm really bringing nothing to the table today.
hey.
I didn't see the movie I was supposed to. I can't remember the game design topic I wanted to talk about. Um, it's it's oh yeah, I wanted to diss on AD&D. I wanted
Uh,
to crap all over AD&D and crap all over the people who are crapping all over skill games, sneering at skill games. Oh yeah. Oh, I want to do this right now while I'm remembering it.
Go for it.
The Bro SR, man, they're talking about skill games. Okay, they're talking about how all these new, modern, newfangled skill-based systems where you have skills like, you know, um, notice and search and sense motive and stuff, how game masters don't even get in with describing the surroundings or playing the game. They just have people come in and say, oh yeah, I searched the room, and they make a search check. And how these game masters don't even have, the gosh darn common courtesy to let them play the game. It's just all rolling, 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 and nothing even matters. Well, I've been playing an old school game basically for almost a year now, because I believe I started in March of last year with the Trollopolis campaign, and I really honestly can't believe it's been a year. It's been a whole year, and I am, uh, I'm amazed. It has been a great year of role playing AD&D. I have learned a lot about game design from AD&D. I have learned a lot about class-based systems and class-based system design, primarily about the purposes of classes. Why is it you want classes in your game, and how that uh, interacts with skill-based systems, and also the purposes of, say, if you have a template or archetype system, things like that. And why third edition was implementing classes the way they did. I can see why they did it, but it had some really bad side effects. And that's another, maybe another game design topic for another day, is why do classes exist, and why is it, if you're going to institute a class system, why I think third edition, despite the fact that I love third edition, D&D, third edition D&D was what I'm talking about now. And despite the fact that it was so monumentally popular, why I think third edition just got classes, wrong. Why they really were kind of tied by having to have a semblance of, they picked out holy cows when they started to design it, things they absolutely couldn't get rid of. Why they really were trying to implement a skill-based system in several ways, and how they could have, how they really destroyed the core feature, the core design goal of a class-based system. That sounds like a cool topic for another day, or maybe
Mhm.
later today if we run out of things to talk about. So here's the thing. There is a huge problem that exists in AD&D that specifically mimics exactly the search problem that you get in just about any other game that has a search skill, which is game masters who haven't been heavily trained in not doing this, or tired game masters, or game masters who, just don't know any better, will say, people come into the room and say, okay, I search it. And then they roll the dice, or the game master tells them to roll the dice, or maybe even the game master rolls the dice himself. And then the game master, without describing the room at all, so they're existing in this gray mist where none of the features are concrete, where they don't necessarily know, oh, yes, this is a room with, that is a nicely appointed office. There are tapestries on the wall. There's a bookcase along the left side of the wall covered in volumes that are, all hardback bound in leather. And there are 3 sconces holding torches that are currently unlit. And there's a massive desk you can barely see at the other end of the long room by the edge of your torchlight. And then saying to the players, what do you do? They just say, okay, I search the room and roll the dice. And the game master says, well, here's what you find. And, tells them. It's all happening in this gray universe where the players don't have a solid description of the world to ground their imaginations in this world they're playing in, which is the point of role-playing games. A free use of imaginations. You're playing in this imaginary world. And the more little details that you can give players without banging on about it or without, without boring them, the more evocative those details are, the better it is for making the world come alive, the better it is for grounding players in that world so they can feel like their characters are interacting with a solid world. Their characters will feel like the world they're in it'll feel real. And that will give them, that will mean they treat the world more seriously. They will treat the world as if it is a place to be in rather than being cavalier about it and just hand-waving all their interactions with the world. If you want the players to take your world and the NPCs in the world more seriously, make the world feel real. Make the people in the world feel real. And it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to bang on and on and on about it. You can do it with just a few details. I mean, those details that I gave in my description, there weren't a lot of them. Tapestries, bookcase, wall sconces, unlit torches, desk. That's not a lot of details. That's 5 details. I'm not suggesting you have to count up every time, but you really don't have to be worried about it. So the problem, AD&D, they crap all over new, and I'm talking about the Bro SR, looking at you, Bro SR. They crap all over new school games, and by new school they mean anything after 1980, that have skill systems because they say rolling replaces the game master's impetus or habit of describing the world. People just come in and say, I roll to search it. Okay, this is what you find, without describing the world. And I assert, I have observed over the last year that the search for secret doors role is as big or greater an offender on this subject as any searching the room skill from, say, 3rd edition or another skill-based system like I only knew one for sure, but I think Shadowrun had a find mechanic. They definitely had a streetwise mechanic where you could go around gathering information, stuff like that. I think as a longtime game designer, or I should say a longtime person who does auxiliary game design for games and is currently designing his own role-playing game, one of my core principles is that no skill roll should replace playing the game, period. That is, no skill roll should ever replace players having to come into the room, hear the description of the room, and then tell the game master what their characters are doing. And skill rolls, if there is going to be any skill roll, it does not replace players having to think their way through the situation. If they want to search this office, they're going to have to tell the game master what they're doing. One of them may say, okay, I start pulling books down and looking through the pages. One of them may have to say, well, I want to look behind the tapestries. What's back there? One of them may say, and by the way, I'm making up these details off the top of my mind. This is not a planned, it's not a planned monologue. So understand that I'm doing exactly what game masters might have to do if they haven't written all these details down. One of them may say, okay, I start, I go look at the desk and start pulling drawers open and going through the drawers. And most importantly, if they haven't thought about it, one of them may have to say, hey, it's kind of freaking dark in here. I light the torches and the sconces so we have more light. And at this point, my gaming theory is that skills in general ought to encourage playing the game, not replace it. So,
what do you mean by that?
If you're going to have a fine skill at all, it should not. And I don't, if you're going to have, okay, so let's take this, search for secret doors. I don't like the mechanic. I don't like it at all.
Searching's a good example of where a skill system can, or even the simple 1 in 6 chance in AD&D is a good replacement for all the things that you could possibly do. I don't think it necessarily makes the experience work, and it doesn't preclude people taking actions in the game world. I think a good game and a good game master can take advantage of the skill system. Say, for example, in the search example, let's say this is a pre-planned room, and you have a note that, oh, there's one of the desk drawer has a false bottom, and there's a special paper in it, or hidden scrolls, or some spare change, right? So if the players decide, oh, we're gonna toss the room, like we're gonna search the whole room for treasure or something, and you might use a die roll and come up with it. They might find it, they might not. But if a player says, all right, I'm going to pull this drawer out and I'm going to smash it, or I'm going to check for a false bottom, or whatever, right? That's 100% certainty in terms of a dice check or a skill roll or something like that. I think the two things can exist in harmony. Because, as you said, when people are interacting with the world as a world, you get situations such as that. Players might ask, tell me about these wall sconces, or tell me about these tapestries. And everybody's going to check behind the tapestries. There's no roll needed for that. They usually call that sort of thing a concealed door as opposed to a secret door. So that's my take on it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that says anything about the goodness or badness of skill systems or AD&D's treasure search in general. I will say there is one counter argument that makes that scenario in particular interesting enough. In an OSR or basic D&D kind of dungeon crawl, the action to search for a secret door has tangible costs and tangible benefits. When you're in a dangerous area and you only have so much time before monsters arrive, then every turn you take out searching walls for secret doors when you're not sure that there's anything there, or searching your room for treasure or anything like that. Like that has a tangible time cost, and that can result in huge penalties. If monsters arrive or you make too much noise or whatever, you could pay dearly for that extra search. In that case, even if it's just a skill check or a dice roll, right? It's still an actual gaming decision. That's interesting and it can be very fun. In my experience, most people aren't that strict about their turn to turn action cost, even in a dungeon crawl. But it's interesting. So that's my reaction. That's my counter to it. Which isn't to say that skill systems are bad, but they do have to have a point. They have to create interesting gameable moments. And to your point, I agree that they shouldn't replace interaction with the game world, as my false bottom example shows.
And from what I've seen, the search for secret doors mechanic, as it's been commonly played, and I have no idea how Gygax used it, simply replaces interacting with the game world. It replaces allowing players to be clever in searching the environment, to notice things or to search for things, to locate them, and to manipulate them, and to be smart about it. Nothing is perfect, and you should have players, you should have something set up by way of the mechanism that players could, through just role playing, through just describing what their characters are doing, be clever and discover things, because that's what gameplay is. I mean, that's what playing a game is, where cleverness and rules mastery allowed you to succeed. Maybe it's thinking, okay, there's maybe there's a breeze blowing through here. So you throw up a cloud of chalk dust to see if the air is stirring. And this is an example, by the way, this next example I stole from a David Drake short story in the Thieves World anthologies. He goes down into this temple, and it's an ages-old hidden cult temple in caverns beneath the city that have been paved. And literally, centuries after centuries, these priests have walked to a secret door somewhere in this cavern. So in order to find this secret door, he pours some liquid on the ground and sees where it runs because their feet have worn down the stones. And so he knows where the secret door is because the water will run down where the stone is worn. And then it pools at the base of the secret door, and he goes over and starts physically searching for it. So as many little details like that give the players the feel of a concrete world instead of just saying, okay, you find it, or okay, you don't find it. I mean, if you roll it and they find it, that you can just describe it. You know, you've noticed this protuberance looks kind of strange. You go over and you turn it, and the door opens. Fine. You've described the world concretely. Their players noticed something and they manipulated the rock, it opened, and that's fine. You don't have to make them, as long as your description of what happened and your description of everything beforehand is concrete, then they will feel like the world is concrete. That's fine. You don't have to extend the game longer than you need to because they found it. But if they didn't find it, you should give them a chance to engage with the world in a concrete way. And if after a reasonable length of time they haven't found it, or there really isn't a secret door in this room, after they've done their tricks to check for one, say, hey, move on. Okay, I listen. And I feel like I would like it if checking for traps and picking locks could be a little bit more descriptive. Instead of just saying, hey, you undo the lock or whatever. I'm not saying that it would work well as a, fully interactive describing everything, because I think that would be a big burden to place on players and game masters.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. It sounds like you'd be better off
But
playing Skyrim.
but I would like there to be at least some description of it for game masters, not to just say, okay, you unlock the lock. If they find a trap, tell them what kind of trap it is. Give a little description of it. Okay, there's a needle here, and if you don't, you know, disarm it properly, it looks like there's some poison on it. That's enough of a description to let people know, hey, kind of here's the stakes, and it makes the lock feel weightier. It makes it feel real, makes it feel existing in the world. You see, I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not suggesting a lot.
I see.
Just a little bit of effort. It's just a slight change. Just game masters remembering, putting out a little bit of effort to describe the world, even if you're going to have a skill total decide it, you shouldn't just let the skill total tell the whole story.
I don't know. I want to wrap up on this because you make really good points. One quick counterexample. Here's a bad skill system game. Here's the real problem. Is a game like Shadowrun. In Shadowrun, is particularly the latest iteration of the game, every interaction with the world follows the same dice mechanics, and the game master does, in fact, set up a situation as you might suggest. Describe the room they're in or the hallway or whatever. Let's say we're in the middle of the actual Shadowrun, and the player chooses to interact with that world. How do they do it? Well, they want to do something to the world, and in nearly all cases, there's a skill or a spell or ability, like a piece of equipment involved, and that involves counting up the rating, rolling that many dice, and counting how many times you roll a 5 or a 6 without fail. Like, that's how you literally interact with everything. And that's my objection. I can't speak for the whole BroSR. That's my objection to skill system games, when they literally turn the entire game into describe setting. Okay, I interact with setting. Okay, then roll your big pile of dice, or roll this dice and add your modifiers, that sort of thing. There's nothing interesting. There's no actual gaming going on.
Right. That's because they're letting the skill, rolling a skill, replace playing the game. You should never let rolling a skill replace playing the game. Ever.
I'm saying there is no game, but I get your point. I get your point. Absolutely, we're totally on the same page. Uh, but that's the problem with Shadowrun is I choose to play the game and interact with the world. And we need to break through this wall. I'm going to use my Shape Earth spell or something, right? And how do you do that? How do you determine the outcome of that interaction? The same way you determine the outcome of everything else. There's no game to it. But I think we're on the same page as far as that goes.
Well, what would you prefer they do with the Shape Earth spell?
And Shadowrun's a great example because a Shape Earth spell, it's equivalent in other games, older games if you prefer, or more fantasy themed games. Basically anything that isn't derived from Hero or Shadowrun, or maybe GURPS, which is, everything's rated with a numerical value, and everything's based off some skill. If I have the Foo spell, I use the Foo skill, and everything turns into a bland mush. So it would be a more discrete or set of values. I've got a spell that lets me see on the other side of a wall. Great, done, right? And it's a finite resource that you can use instead of I've got a button I push that just does that. The result of those sort of well thought out spells and abilities, and you mentioned classes as classes, I think they create a more compelling world by themselves just by implementing them. So I think going full skill system a la Shadowrun or GURPS or whatever, that's nuts. That's how you get bland porridge gaming. And it all boils down to, like you said, game masters got to make sure that when the rules are applied, that the people feel like they're playing a game and they're playing in a real world.
Yeah, whatever happens with the skills, game masters have to describe the results in terms of concrete events in the real world. I mean, in the game world. You just saying, okay, you get, okay, you find 50 gold. You should at least make, even if you're just, searching a pile of orcs, you say, okay, the orcs stink really badly, but pulling the pouches off their belts and counting up the change, you find 21 electrum pieces you can pull out of their pouches, along with a bunch of unidentifiable bones and pieces of fur. Okay, those are just a couple of details. I think that's 3 details, maybe 4. Orc stink, pouches on belts, electrum pieces, bits of bones in their pouches too.
Absolutely. Well
So
said. Yeah.
Go ahead, finish.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're able to remember that and get that off your chest because that's a good point. Good tips for DMs. Let's move on if that's all right.
I was done. I was done before you started going into Shadowrun, but it's okay.
I could not resist the urge to slam Shadowrun. But yeah, the topic of today's show, you asked me about modern, a couple of movies that are out, and I decided it would be fun to do a date night and go see Cocaine Bear. Uh, which because you suggested I don't know if you were thinking of watching a movie or not, or it sounded like you were just asking like, hey, what do you think? But you were thinking maybe Cocaine Bear or Quantum Mania, and
Yeah.
everything loses to Marvel. I don't think I'm ever gonna see another one. So I decided to watch Cocaine Bear.
No, man. You have to watch She-Hulk. Dude, it's awesome.
Oh
I
yeah,
rarely have I seen the art of making television just reach such sublime heights.
Sublime Heights of Unwatchability.
She makes fun of MRAs and pickup artists. She has Cardi B on and they twerk.
Would did
Twerk.
they twerk? Wow, that's really pushing the boundaries of storytelling. I guess this must have been written in 2014 or something.
Name me one other television series that does that. You can't. You
No,
can't.
I can't. I can't. No, I will not subject myself to Ant-Man, but somehow Cocaine Bear didn't feel much better. So this is supposedly based on a true story of uh, drug dealers with a plane full of Colombian-made cocaine flying
Uncut.
over uncut, pure uncut, flying over Appalachia with millions and millions of dollars worth of cocaine, and this is back in 1986. Actual millions and millions of dollars in 1986 dollars worth of cocaine, and it was dropped from a plane into some national park in northern Georgia.
Because this is a legit method of drug distribution.
Absolutely,
You
yes.
drop.
They actual airdrop.
It's not an accident. It's not like, the door flew open and their cocaine, fell out. This is, they drop it at the delivery point, so people can go out and pick it up without being tracked.
As the story goes, a black bear found some of it in this forest, ate it, went berserk, and died. So that's where the similarities end. I can say without reservation that this is the dumbest movie I've seen in a very long time. And I watched the new Beavis and Butthead cartoon last year.
Oh, on HBO Max?
Yeah, they did a new movie where they were brought into the present day from some time travel scheme. There was some infinite universe, multiverse Beavis and Buttheads as well. It's even dumber than it sounds. And this movie was as dumb as that. This is a film by Elizabeth Banks, who I mentioned because that's posted at the beginning of the film, an Elizabeth Banks film, which makes me wonder what she did to deserve that kind of punishment. Most people, when they have films that come out in February or early March, they know it's because the film is bad. And a lot of people, particularly writers, will say, you know what, leave my name off the credits. Too much script doctoring. Man. So they use this story. Bear gets messed up on cocaine and turned it into what appears to be a comedy horror film, or is it a parody of a comedy horror film? But here's the deal: there was nothing funny in the film, and there was nothing scary in the film. And the biggest, second biggest? No, the biggest problem for me is, I guess, the obvious. The bear's animated.
Wait, what?
They didn't do much, if any, footage of actual bears. The the cocaine bear's got very like specific features, like a notched ear and scars on her face and everything, and very animated face, animated faces. And of course, there's lots of scenes where it's like running around chasing poor hikers and rampaging. Okay, they're not. That's obviously a computer animated bear. Absolutely atrocious. It completely removes any sense of dread or anything. This is obviously one big joke, which is fine because all the characters are jokes. They have, and this is the second worst part of the film. They try to set up a large-ish cast of characters who are all entering the park for one reason or another. Some of them to recover the drugs. Some of them are on a hike. Some of them are, there's the mom who's going to find her children who went, skipped school to go for a day hike, right? They're all written without any personality except witty, quirky dialogue. And it's delivered by people who can't handle it. So we've got bad characters, written badly, acted badly. The only one in the film with any, I don't know why you'd use gravitas in this kind of film, but apparently this is one of Ray Liotta's last films, and he plays the old drug lord who's on the hook for all the millions of dollars of cocaine. So he's one of the guys there recovering the. What a movie to be your last movie, right? Wow. That's like when your favorite NFL player retires in a 1 in 16 season of the Cleveland Browns. You go, I'm not gonna remember that season. He never wore that uniform. So the trailer promised a goofy, campy romp with a bear killing people, and managed to make none of it entertaining, except for one scene. There is a chase scene where paramedics, someone called an ambulance because they were injured in a knife fight earlier in the film. Yeah, don't ask. And the paramedics show up to find that the bear had arrived and mauled everybody on site. So they're trying to escape in an ambulance, 2 paramedics and 1 survivor, and the bear chases them down the road and takes out the ambulance and kills them all. And it's so over the top, and the effects and the animations are fun enough, especially the slow motion cartoon bear leaping into the back of the ambulance, which I believe was part of the extended trailer. Plus the park ranger played by Margot Martindale getting her comeuppance at the hands of the bear. Absolutely hilarious for about a second. The movie provided one moment, one entertaining moment. I wish you'd seen it. Oh, my goodness. I mean, so what did it do wrong? I already said the animated bear. Holy cow. The awful
If you're going to
writing.
do this movie, you should at least have real bears on set. You should have bear wranglers right there to
Yeah,
to make the movie work.
I don't know if they used any at all. I didn't bother looking it up. But of course, the cocaine bear herself, really goofy, smiley animated, sort of like Snakes on a Plane, which I didn't see, but they showed the obviously animated snake face on the trailer, and you go, oh, okay, that's what the kind of movie this is going to be. Um, all the attempts at humor and the jokes fall flat. Um, every character is obnoxious, not in the way that in a horror film you're like, oh wait, I can't wait for the killer to kill this guy. Uh, I can't wait for the killer to get her. Just in the completely unbelievable and unfunny. Like they add nothing to the film. Three three punk teenagers who basically harass park goers and steal stuff. They find the cocaine and they're basically useless characters who don't even get killed by the bear. Well, one of them doesn't. There's a scene where uh, someone opens a door to a closet and there's blood coming out from under the door, you know, and the audience is like, oh no, there's a bear in there. And of course, he finds all the blood and then the bear quietly steps out of the shadows. It's a computer animated bear face. There's nothing scary or anything about it. I keep harping on that. It's really egregious. Um, but that's what you get for watching movies in March. Really. That's where you get great stuff like Quantumania and Cocaine Bear.
I've got
Um,
another Marvel movie coming out in May.
in May. Now that's summer. That's the beginning of the summer blockbuster season. Thanks for the puns, chat. Sounds unbearable. Absolutely. Um,
Go ahead,
the
ask me what
the
Marvel movie's coming out in May.
I don't wanna. What Marvel movie's coming out in May?
I actually don't remember. I've seen
Really?
the trailer. I've seen the trailer like 3 times, and I don't remember.
Oh, they're all the same. I think I remember, but right after this, Cocaine Bear. Even if you were suckered in by the name, even if you're suckered in by the idea of, oh, and I thought about this. I got to tell my buddy Steve of the Bone Bat Show. I'm sure he's probably seen it by now. This is the sort of thing that both would be great as the feature full length film for the Comedy of Horrors Film Fest, yet at the same time, I doubt it would make the cut. That's how badly they failed at being a horror movie, a comedy horror movie, or a parody of the same. It's that bad. This year, speaking of movies I'm not going to watch, unless, see, after the Cocaine Bear, uh, my fiance, who's my date, said, "You owe me one. I've got 2 free passes." So if she drags me to Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't know what movie they're on, 3 now, 4.
3. Oh, that's what's coming out in May.
That's what's coming out this year.
Uh,
Also looks completely unwatchable. I mean, after a while, you see all these. Everybody loves a good comic book adventure every now and then, but these Marvel movies, they have been kid stuff the whole time, and it's amazing that they've trudged on without people like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark.
if
Because
the MCU is over when they retired Iron Man, um, Captain America, Black Widow, um,
It's true, and you have to admit it was pretty well dead by that time anyway. There's a pretty good
So
reason why those big actors were done with it.
that last movie was a great movie, when they all the portals up and all their friends and armies came through and they were fighting Thanos from the past and all his armies and all of that. You could see the cracks forming that would eventually kill the MCU, but that last, and there was one or two good movies after that, mainly the Spider-Man one. No Way Home, I thought that was a great movie. But man, that was it. That was the end of the MCU because one, you had finished this magnum opus that began back with Iron Man in 2007, and you didn't have any stars that could carry the MCU onward. That's it. It was basically trying to reboot it from scratch, but they were still acting like they could, continue on from the hype from before, but they didn't. They had killed all the hype.
You're much nicer to the MCU than I would be, but you're right. It was, but they have to keep trying to print money. Amazing how it went as long as it did.
I mean, it was it was kind of a record-breaking run for shared universe movies, as far as I know. It was like 32 films or something like that. And there were some stinkers in there. Iron Man 2 and 3, both bad. Thor 2, terrible. But most of them were good to great.
You're too kind, but yeah, your point made. Relatively speaking, wow. So yeah, there is. I mean, speaking of that stuff, there is nothing to look forward to in terms of, I don't know, what do I say, visual media or entertainment or anything like that. Blockbuster movies are dead. They're all dominated by rehashed Disney Marvel garbage. Um, even the so if you're looking for an art film, like if you're that type of person, all the stuff that's coming out by that studio's A24. I mean, it's all bad. You can just smell the pretentious Oscar bait coming in from the preview. Uh, it's just terrible.
I watched an
People,
A24 movie that was good, but I can't remember the name of it right now.
you liked The Northman. I liked The
Oh, yeah,
Northman.
The Northman was great.
I liked The Northman. Um, I watched The Witch. The Witch was okay.
I liked The Witch a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, you're not going to get any. You're not. They are fully pretentious. They are pretending to have any sort of ability or that they're looking for some recognition of their artsiness or their high cult. No, it's all trash. It's all trash. You just got to make good trash. Nobody makes good trash anymore.
Ex Machina is a movie um, that was the breakout film for Alicia Vikander,
Hmm.
and that was, I know her career seems to have gone up and down, um, but it was a movie that was really kind of really convinced of its cleverness without seeming to recognize that it was trotting a well-trodden path in the genre of humanoid looking robots and stuff. And then it it wasn't as clever as it thought it was. But
Hmm.
it was kind of interesting in some ways. I'm not giving it a recommend, but I'm giving it kind of a 45% of a recommend. 45% of a recommend.
And that doesn't. That's a good recommend. That doesn't help us find anything to watch coming up. So, in I guess we should start wrapping up here. What do we have looking forward to in the next couple of months on the
Oh,
Geek Gab?
I wanted to say this. I saw Nope this week finally,
Oh, good.
um, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't a perfect movie, but man, it was really solid.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I really did enjoy it. I think it was a movie that was a little bit hampered by the director trying to put a bunch of themes into it instead of just focusing on the story. Because I think the story was enough. The story was good enough to have carried the whole movie. You didn't have to try and put deep meaning into it because it had so many little themes that really weren't supposed to be themes. They were just subplots. They were just character development to help you, to help you uh, feel empathy for the characters. But man, I really did like the three main characters. I like the actors playing them. The brother and sister and the tech guy, those were all great people. The cameraman was awesome. Um, but then again, that actor, I really like that actor, have ever since The Crow. Um, and yeah, I would definitely give a recommend to Nope. Um, it's a
Cool.
Jordan Peele movie, but it is not. It isn't preachy, and it's a lot more grounded and a lot more coherent than, say, Us. Uh, and given the subject matter of the movie, I think it's a. I don't see where he would have cheated on the logic or anything. It just made sense to me, given the premise of the movie. The rest of it made sense.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was a good movie. It was a great movie. I mean that not in the sense of legendary greatness, but yeah, it was a great movie to watch. I enjoyed it. Um, I would
Recommend.
recommend it. And that's not a if you like this sort of thing recommendation, which I have to give a lot, but no, it's just a recommendation. I loved the final thing that the thing did, where it kind of altered some of the stuff, if you know what I'm talking about,
I don't.
where it became.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
I thought that was great. Uh, Man, and that rainfall on the house just was disturbing. I mean, this is a horror movie, folks. Just know that when you're going in.
Unlike Cocaine Bear, which is not funny or horrible, or horrid, terrifying. It is horrible.
So yeah, I think that's it.
Sounds good. Hey, that was fun to chat about movies and the usual stuff. It was a good time. I do hope everybody live chat was enjoying slamming Hollywood and everything. We got a big don't watch for Cocaine Bear, and and watch for Nope if you haven't yet. Um, and hope everybody listening later hasn't yet already seen Cocaine Bear, so they got their fair warning. It really is that bad. But I'm done for this week, War Pig. Thanks for chatting. Take it away.
I've been looking through the list of A24 movies, and I've gotten up to April 27th, 2018. Another one that I really liked was The Disaster Artist, which was the movie about Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero making The Room. Uh, the Disaster Artist was a great movie. It really was interesting and fun, and I really enjoyed it. That one was not pretentious. Most of their, quote unquote, elevated horror absolutely is pretentious, but that one was just a nice movie. So it's really sad because most of their movies really have been really have had a decent budget for what they're doing. They're movies that would have been low budget movies, but they've gotten a decent enough budget to look really nice, to have good, you know, uh, to have good production values, but they're just really pretentious. And of course, Uncut Gems, which I thought was a great movie, and I believe John hated.
Didn't see it.
Oh,
Can't do Adam Sandler anymore. Cannot.
oh, but this wasn't an Adam Sandler movie. I mean,
I know. I know.
um, well, I would recommend both The Disaster Artist and Uncut Gems. Um, they're not what you would think of as my usual fare, but they were uh, both really good. And I like quality films. I love movies. I love movies so much. Oh, and on the music tip, I listened to, if you ever heard the song Steal My Sunshine from the 90s from a group called Len, that's Len, called Len.
Hmm.
I watched a YouTube video talking about one hit wonders. And the guy was saying that the album that song came off of uh, was an uh, was an absolutely spectacular album that uh, it's called "You Can't Stop the Bum Rush," and that what they had done with that album is that every song on the album was from a different musical genre, and they were all good. So I spent the last week or so listening to that album and listening to the songs on the album, and I have to say he was right. You Can't Stop the Bum Rush is a really interesting and a really good album. So and it's anchored by Steal My Sunshine, which became a really big hit. So I would say they're not. I would agree with this YouTuber that they are not one-hit wonders. And if you have a streaming service like Spotify or Apple Music, go check out You Can't Stop the Bum Rush because it is a really good album, and I really enjoyed becoming familiar with it over the last week or so. If I can get hold of my mouse cursor here, let me tell you, I like the song called "Cryptic Souls Crew." Um, and of course, Steal My Sunshine, which is the song everybody likes. And also Man of the Year. And those are tracks 2 and 3. So if you have Apple Music or Spotify or one of the other streaming services, I encourage you, give it a listen. Especially tracks 1, 2, and 3, which are for me the big features off the album. All right. I really meant to do that earlier in the show, but it completely slipped my mind until right now.
I'm glad you got to it.
All right, I'm done. There's nothing else I wanted to talk about. So I want to say thanks for everyone tuning in and participating with the chat. Want to say thanks to everyone who listened live and everyone who will listen later. This has been Geek Gab for Saturday, March 4th, 2023. And you can get us just about every week, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, right here on youtube.com/geekgab, youtube.com/geekgab. And if you want to get a emailed announcement for when the show starts, go ahead and subscribe and click bell. We're also available on the Apple iTunes Store, on the Google Play Store, or on SoundCloud.com to download on the device of your choice, or to listen on the web, or download to your computer. We are signing out for today, folks. But don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.